She thought escaping the baby factory would mean freedom, but the moment she stepped into the streets, danger followed. Madam Cole isn't letting her go off so easily. Her team is hunting her relentlessly. Ijoma had no money, no contacts, and nowhere to hide. One wrong move and she could vanish without a trace. Every step is a gamble. Every decision could be her last. She has to outsmart them, gather proof, and expose the dark truth before it's too late. Ijoma walked through the crowded Lagos streets, tired, hungry, and thirsty. The city buzzed around her, honking cars, street hawkers shouting, children laughing, and people going about their day, but none of it mattered. She immediately decided to go to the nearest police station to report everything about the baby factory to them so that Madam Cole can be arrested immediately. Her hands trembled as she pushed open the big gate. "Sir, I need to report something. It's urgent. A crime involving a popular beauty spa here in Lagos," she said, her voice shaky. The officer behind the counter glanced at her, eyes narrowing. "Ma'am, are you sure of this information you're saying? Hope this is not a false alarm." "I'm serious, officer," Ijoma snapped, gripping the edge of the counter. They keep girls in there, force them to have babies, and then sell the babies. You have to do something quick." The officer leaned back, folding his arms. All right. Calm down. Fill this form first. Let's see the full details of what you have," he said, and entered the partition behind him. As Ijoma scribbled down her details, she heard voices from inside the partition. Then she started hearing some whispered arguments. "Are you sure she's from Madam Cole's place?" one voice asked. "No, it can't be. No one lives there alive." "Maybe we should call her first and confirm," another said. "No, let's wait first, see what happens, because I don't really think she came from there. Maybe it's a leaked information." Ijoma froze. Wait, had they connected to Madam Cole? She asked herself. The argument continued quietly behind the partition, giving her all the confirmation she needed. Without a sound, she set down the pen and slipped out of the station quietly, her heart pounding as she blended into the streets. Outside the station, Ijoma's legs felt heavy. Her chest heaved as she pressed herself against the wall, trying to calm down. Where do I go now? What do I do? Who can I trust? Fear gnawed at her. Every passerby now seemed like a potential threat to her. She had no money, no contacts, and nowhere safe to go. Slowly, almost hesitantly, she held out her hand and started begging for money. "Please, can you spare me some change?" she asked one passerby. Money was given to her, not much, but enough to keep going. She used all the small change she got that night to buy some food. Nothing fancy, just enough to quiet the hunger gnawing at her. Later, she found a cheap room where she could spend the night. There was a small bed, a rickety fan, and a small radio. She paid for 2 nights. Finally, she collapsed on the bed to rest, even though sleeping felt impossible. Every sound outside the thin walls of the room made her jump up scared. Sitting on the bed later that morning, Ijoma clenched her fists. "I'll find a way. I have to, or no one else will." She stared at the cracked wall, her mind forming a plan. She didn't really have a plan on what next to do, so she started thinking. Back at the baby factory, the bar seemed normal, but something was off. The guards looked around and whispered to each other, eyes sharp. "Where's number 7, the one in a red dress?" one guard asked, scanning the remaining girls. "I think she went to the toilet," another said, frowning. "But she's been gone for hours now." The search for Ijoma started immediately. They checked the hotel side, toilet, the bar, every corner of the spa, and even the salon, but they found nothing. Madam Cole said with urgency. She looked calm, but her eyes were sharp, slicing through the fear in the room. The CCTV footage showed Ijoma going to the toilet, changing into a staff uniform, moving through the service areas, blending in with staff, and then disappearing into the shadows at the car park. The guards replayed the video over and over, but there was no trace beyond that point because Ijoma hid in the shadows at the blind spot of the cameras. Madam Cole's team mobilized fast. Men were sent to search the car parks and the nearby streets outside the building. Security cars patrolled and everyone on edge. The girls inside felt it too. The tension was thick, like a storm about to break. Inside, Whispers floated through the compound. Some girls looked at each other, fear in their eyes. Others just kept their heads down, silent. When Nurse Agnes heard the news that Ijoma had escaped, she was happy that their plan had worked, but she didn't expose her happiness. Madame Cole looked calm, but deep down she was scared. Someone had slipped through their fingers. Someone had managed to get away, and she had a feeling that Ijoma would likely expose them. And though she didn't know exactly where Ijoma was, the hunt had begun, and the factory would not rest until they found her. Ijoma walked through the streets, her heart pounding with every step. She kept glancing over her shoulder, imagining guards or men sent by Madame Cole around every corner. The city that had once seemed ordinary now felt like a maze of danger. She stopped at a small intersection and thought, the police can't really help because most of them are connected to her. I need another way before it's too late. She went back to the small room she rented and sat down there thinking. She later switched on a nearby radio, hoping for distraction, but it became a lifeline. Voices filled the room as she listened to the news, stories, and people talking about injustices. She listened carefully, and one station caught her attention. She noted the name and where it was located, tucking it into her mind. The next morning, she made her way to the radio station, walking slowly and asking the people around for directions, and also begging for transport money. When she finally got there, she entered the reception. "Excuse me, I need to speak to someone. It's very important, please," she said, voice barely above a whisper. The receptionist looked her up and down, frowning. "Do you have any appointment with the person here? Or are you asking for money? Who even allowed you in?" Yes, I have no money, but this is serious. People are being hurt and forced. I have proof." The receptionist hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Wait here. I'll see if there's someone that can talk to you." Minutes passed, but it felt like hours. Ijoma fidgeted, trying to stay calm, praying they would take her seriously, and also praying that they weren't also connected to Madame Cole too. Finally, a journalist came out and motioned for her to follow. She told her story, trembling at first but gaining strength as she spoke. Names, schedules, routines, testimonies of the girls trapped inside the factory. The journalist listened intently, taking notes and asking more questions. Later that day, the station connected her with a human rights organization. For the first time, Ijeoma felt a glimmer of hope. She wasn't alone anymore. But her safety was still fragile. She moved constantly, avoiding hotels, police stations, notable places, and anyone who might recognize her. Every day, she pored over her notes and documented every detail she could remember. It was exhausting, terrifying, but necessary. She was building the foundation to bring the baby factory down. Ijoma and the human rights team worked tirelessly. Every day, they collected testimonies from her, documented schedules, took photographs, and compiled oral proof of the babies being sold. She says there was a lady who was forced to deliver 3 babies in the space of 2 years, one volunteer said, shaking her head. "And here's the schedule of buyers coming in every week," another added, pointing at a carefully kept log. Ijoma reviewed everything. "I think this is enough. We can't wait any longer," she said, her voice quiet but firm. The media got involved soon after. News outlets, radio programs, and even social media channels carried her story. Lagos woke up to shocking headlines. A popular beauty spa with a hidden baby factory, girls trapped and babies sold, a real-life baby factory with a lot of baby producers. People called the stations in outrage. Protests started to form. Questions were fired at officials, and the public demanded answers. Back at the factory, security was in chaos. Guards and staff scrambled trying to cover tracks, but every move was too little, too late. The news had already spread. The world was watching. Ijoma watched from a safe location given to her by the human rights, feeling a mix of exhaustion and cautious relief. The factory was finally exposed and the first steps towards justice were in motion. One morning, the factory was finally raided. Police and human rights teams moved in. They secured the gates, gathered everyone working in the spa, bar, and hotel, and brought the babies and girls, both pregnant and otherwise, safely out. Most of the staff working outside had no idea anything like this was happening behind the building. Madam Ko and her team were arrested on the spot, handcuffed and shocked, along with everyone involved in running the operation. All of them were taken to the station for questioning, including Nurse Agnes. Once the building was completely cleared, it was demolished a few days later. That's when the grim reality came to light. Remains of people, including Kemi, were discovered buried within the compound. Some babies were traced and returned to the girls, but others were never found. The scale of the horror hit Ijoma in waves, and a deep silence fell over the site as everyone absorbed the truth. Investigations continued, and as authorities combed through the rubble, shocking connections began to surface. Buyers and influential people linked to the factory were traced and arrested. The operation had been far bigger than anyone imagined, and the nightmare that had trapped so many girls was finally unraveled. As investigations deepened, a shocking revelation came to light. Madam Ko was not the real owner of the baby factory. She was only a manager. The real owners of the factory were top politicians, religious leaders, and other powerful figures. Their influence explained why the operation had gone unnoticed for so long and why certain officials had been protecting it. By the end of everything, it was clear that justice had finally reached the heart of the operation. The girls were freed, the factory demolished, and the network of corruption partially unveiled. Ijeoma stood, exhausted and shaking. Lives had been saved, and the truth had been brought into the light. If you enjoyed this video, don't just watch, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss any of our latest stories, updates, and surprises. Trust me, you'll want to see what's coming next.